I don't think I'm ever going to be able to afford a home. How am I going to buy a house? How do I avoid paying tax?
I'm joined by Abigail Foster, a chartered accountant, financial educator, and author of the Money Manual.
Like, do you do any saving? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so you're not terrible, you just don't do it. Why are women not having kids? I'm like, because there's absolutely no protection for us.
Money is such a source of stress.
This financial system was not set up for women in the way it was set up for men. I just want to leave this party.
In this episode, we talk about why money can feel so overwhelming.
Money doesn't buy happiness. I'm like, yeah, but it buys freedom.
I do relate with anyone that's afraid to check their credit card statement.
Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
So if someone is in debt, where do they start?
Take yourself on a money date, because even if you've saved £1, it's the psychology. You can't build wealth on sand.
Until you've got a little bit of money saved, you shouldn't necessarily think about investing.
No, not necessarily that.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Vision of Health, the podcast where I talk to qualified experts about what being healthy really looks like in everyday life and how your daily habits can help you feel well today whilst also protecting your long-term health. I'm Dr. Frankie. I'm a medical doctor specialising in cancer research, and my mission is to bridge the gap between the science and real life, helping you make sense of the evidence in a realistic and sustainable way without falling victim to trends and fads. So whether we're talking about nutrition, sleep, gut health, movement, mental health, or longevity, this podcast is here to help you build your vision of health. I'm Dr. Frankie, and this is my Vision of Health. Money is one of the biggest sources of stress I see people carrying around with them. It shows up in sleep, anxiety, or decision making, and yet most of us were never properly taught how money actually works. We're handed a payslip, a tax code, maybe a pension, and kind of told to just get on with it. Then social media pressure piles on with shopping guides, affiliate links that you just can't help clicking on, the trap of comparison. It's no wonder that so many of us feel overwhelmed and ashamed when it comes to our finances. So today, I wanted to bring us a conversation that helps cut through the noise and feel more in control. I'm joined by Abigail Foster, a chartered accountant, financial educator, and author of the Money Manual, a practical, no-nonsense guide to managing your personal finances. In this episode, we talk about why money can feel so overwhelming, the simple foundations that everyone should have in place, how to start if you're in debt or you feel behind, and the small, realistic habits that help reduce money stress over time. My hope is that you leave this conversation feeling a little less alone, a lot more informed, and have at least one concrete plan in place to help you feel more in control of your personal finances, and with at least one concrete step that can help support both your financial health and your overall well-being. Abigail Foster, welcome to Vision of Health.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I can see that you are everywhere. You're so busy doing so many amazing things to help educate people. So I'm very grateful for your time this morning. Money is one of the most common stresses in modern life. Why do you think so many people feel overwhelmed by it?
Oh, the simple answer is we're not taught about it at school, and it's one of those taboo subjects. So many people feel like because they weren't talking about it from a young age that it's something that's embarrassing to talk about now. And it just breeds so much confusion and anxiety around what it should look like because people were never taught what it should look like.
I completely agree with that. There's so many things I remember from school, like algebra and Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah, and Oxbow Lakes. Yeah. I know a lot about Oxbow Lakes and volcanoes. Never used either of those in my day-to-day life.
Agree, but didn't never learn about tax codes and pension and things. You've shared so much practical content online through your Instagram platform and now your book, The Money Manual. Like you said, when I was growing up, I was taught not to really talk about money. It was all a bit of a taboo subject. It was seen as a bit crude if you spoke about finances. But now it feels like financial transparency is on the rise. What made you want to start talking about money so publicly in the first place? Yeah,
financial education is really having a moment, which I'm so here for. I think even when I started on social media, which was only, 3 years ago, I didn't see the kind of obsession with it that we do now. People are really cottoning onto it, which is we love. I would say for me, I studied to be a ACA chartered accountant. I qualified back in 2020, and my career mainly started in practice. So I worked for I kind of did Mr. and Mrs. Smith's bookkeeping and things like that. And then I went into industry. So I worked for Condé Nast, which owns Vogue, and it used to own Brides and magazines like that. And then I went to Hearst after a few years, which identical company, basically just different magazines. So Hearst has Harper's Bazaar, Esquire, Good Housekeeping. I absolutely loved it at Hearst. It was amazing. But I qualified and thought, I don't know if this is what I meant to do. I don't know if I'm meant to be a finance manager or a head of finance or a CFO. Like those are the kind of projections for most accountants. And I thought, well, what else could I do? And I really enjoyed the one-on-one time I had with my stakeholders within Hearst. Like I used to love going and speaking to the girls across the departments. You know, there was this part of Hearst that was like Hearst Live, which was like the event side of Hearst. And there was these amazing women. There was a couple of guys in the team as well, but amazing women within this team that just bring these events to life. And one of the struggles that we used to have as me and them was working out what their budget was and what they actually spent. And I realized there was this disconnect even in kind of business finance and people working within businesses that they didn't really understand the finances and so they didn't really understand what they were saying yes and no to. And so a lot of the team would send me a budget and be like, oh, I think this event's going to cost 40 grand, let's say. And then the event would come in at 50 and I would then have to explain where that, like the difference was and why that was really important that they shouldn't have kind of underestimated, but almost like tried to overestimate or like get on the number because it creates this like then ripple effect within the business. And I used to love those conversations talking about money with other people in the business. And so I kind of leant back and thought, right, what is it that I enjoy most about my job? It was teaching. What is the fundamental problem here? Why don't they want to talk about money? Why do they tell me, oh, I'm just really bad with finances, like you handle it? It's because, when we're at school, we're taught that it's like a rude word or it's a difficult subject. And actually it's really not. And so I started a company that teaches finance in schools.
Oh, amazing.
I got very lucky very quickly that schools were very interested in what we had to offer. It was literally just me going into schools and teaching finance. But I'm quite passionate. I get dressed up and I made it look slightly different to what I think most people thought it would look like.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of schools quite quickly and I love it. And that still runs today and I absolutely love it. We're building some products now because Ellen is currently a service-based business where it's just limited by the amount of teachers I can get and the days that they've got in the schools. Whereas we're now going to be building some courses specifically for like parents and teachers now because we're finding it difficult to get into as many schools as we really want to. Mm-hmm. But then, I kind of loved what I was doing, but the school money is not like good enough really. And also I couldn't get the business well known without a platform. And so I started social media back in 2023 properly. Took a long time of like working out who I wanted to be, what it was. And the space already had some incredible like finance creators like Ola, it had Laura Ann Moore. Then you had like these like staples like Nisha, Tori Dunlop, Simran Kaur, like all of these incredible finance people. And I just thought, well, I can come in and talk about payslips because none of them are really doing that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't mind talking about payslips. I know it's boring, but that's okay. And I created a series of videos on what I thought were really boring subjects, and payslips, the video on payslips went viral, and it kind of took me from being an absolute nobody in the space to suddenly someone that people were listening to, which was wild.
It's incredible. And I think what you said there about, they're already being creators, I think there's so much space for people at the top. You know, it's people want someone that they can relate to, and everyone brings something unique. So I think it's incredible that more content like this is popping up because I love the unsexy, boring stuff. Yeah. That's the stuff that actually works. That's the stuff that we need to learn, whether it's about health or finance. Not always the stuff that you think is going to go viral.
Exactly. I think also especially for women, like we're very used to competing. And I think that social media needs to be a new world where we're not damaging our mental health by comparing ourselves to people, but actually realizing that there is space for all of us. And we need all of us because not everyone is going to want to follow me and not everyone is going to want to follow someone someone else. Exactly. And actually there needs to be much more of us so that people feel seen and represented. I think that's taken a little while, and sometimes social media can be, I'm sure like, as you talked about on the podcast before, social media can be quite damaging on your mental health, but actually finding my little space in this community, in this world, I suppose, has been really nice actually.
Exactly. And I think there are lots of pages like, I guess, what we post in our different niches that can be a positive thing for people. It's just how you use it. What do you think are some of the most common anxieties about finances and money that you hear, especially from women or younger adults?
Younger adults, the anxiety is around what success looks like. And what I mean by that is often they don't say it like that. What they say to me is, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to afford a home. How am I going to buy a house? And how do I avoid paying tax is one of the other ones. And do you know what? They all actually stem back to success and what they think success looks like, because there is a older generation, the boomer generation, that bought houses and are now, living in those houses that have 20x, sometimes, more than what they bought them for. And the next generation are going, well, I want that. But actually, it's not that we're not living in the same world anymore. Like, you can't buy a house in South London for, 50K or whatever, and then sell it 10 years later for $500,000, or even sometimes I'm seeing crazy stats at the moment. One of a family friend said that her mum bought a house back in the 80s for something like £70,000. And then it just happened to be right next to a station that became one of the main stations that goes straight into London from the southeast.
Yeah.
And given the location, it's now worth over $1 million.
Yeah,
wow. That is nuts. Yeah. And that generation are definitely doing really well off of that increase in house prices. But the next generation see it, want it, because they think, well, that's ready, that's going to be there for me. Don't realize that it's probably not. And so they say to me, well, how do I get on the housing ladder? And I'm like, well, why don't we review whether getting on the housing ladder makes sense for you? Because there are ways. Yes, there are. And if having a asset like that and being a property owner is your single measure of success, and that is what you really want, there are so many ways that you can get there. However, I wish we could change the conversation around for the next generation to think about things like investing, and whether being a digital nomad and having a bit more freedom in their career is better success than our parents' generation, who just wanted houses and just wanted property. So I think changing that viewpoint of success is a really good one for the next generation. And also, when they tell me I don't want to pay tax, it's usually, and it stems a little bit from the manosphere, where they're watching some of these like horrific creators online that say things like, I've moved to X place because I don't want to pay tax anymore, or I'm not paying tax on my income because of X. And it just reasserts this kind of belief in the next generation that to be successful, you shouldn't pay tax, which is ridiculous. Mm. And I think it is difficult. I think Rory Sutherland was on a podcast the other week, and he was saying how it's very difficult to feel sorry for those like high earners. So the people that are earning between 100 and, maybe 250K a year, but actually they're paying some of the largest amounts of tax in the UK. They're paying a significant percentage of the income tax that we're paying in the UK. And we need people to invest back in the UK, because if we don't, we're going to lose things like the NHS, like the state pension. Yes, the government has a lot to answer for in the terms of they need to be doing more to solidify that those things will be there through their actions as well. But also, unfortunately, tax is a real necessity. And I think changing the way we view success for the next generation will help them work out what makes sense and what they want to see in their future. Yeah, and also, sorry, you asked about young women as well. Young women specifically, it's like, how do I create, I call it like the FU fund or the Freedom Fund. How do you create a fund that protects you? Because it's not an easy world right now. And things look very uncertain. And I think a lot of people are being fed this information of, right, you should invest. And I'm one of them. I think people should invest to build their wealth. But I stand very clearly on, you must have your foundation levels first. So you must have things like your savings pot, your emergency fund pot, etc., to help you in times of crisis. You can't build wealth on sand. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be one of the things I hear the most as well. It's like, how do I build that? And I think it's out of fear, which is a shame, but that often happens when we're not talking about something for a long time.
And it's that kind of, we want instant reward. It's the same with all of our health habits. Yeah. It's really hard to do small daily actions that you can't necessarily see the benefits of.
Yeah.
Like the investing is for the long term, and people want quick results now. Whereas if you buy a property, you have something to show for it. Or if you buy a flashy car, you have something to show for your wealth. Whereas silently investing in the background and building wealth, it kind of jars with what people want to portray.
Oh my God, you couldn't be more right. Like, we joked obviously on the way in here, like I get up really early. It's so annoying and it's so boring, and I don't want to do it. Every morning I go, not every morning, some mornings, especially when it's sunny, I'm like, oh, this is nice. But most mornings I really don't want to do it. But I do it because of the long-term effects it has, like the capacity it gives me to make sure I go to the gym, make sure I, do nice things for myself before everyone else wakes up.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the same with finances. People want everyone wants the highlight reel of my life without realizing what I've had to do to get there. And I think that goes across all finances. A lot of people see everyone's highlight reel on social media and go, I want that now, but they're not willing to do the other 5 years they've been putting in for the last 5 years to do it, to get it effectively.
I agree. And that does worry me a little bit about younger generations not necessarily seeing the behind the scenes and just seeing the highlight reel and the amount of time it takes for someone, we get put in the same brackets. Actually, I don't know how old you are, but we get put in the same brackets as I'm 32. And sometimes I see creators that are 22, 23, but we're kind of in the same bracket. And then there is some comparison. I think, well, I've actually been working for 10 years longer. So when I have bought things or built things, whether that be wealth or like relationships or hobbies or skills and things, I think I've actually been doing it for quite a lot longer.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to just compare that.
I don't know about you, but I actually get really protective over the younger women in my space, because I feel like sometimes in my space, they expect them to be where I am.
Exactly.
And I'm like, no, they're too young. Leave them alone. I'm in admiration of some of the women in my space. There's a girl called Mia McGrath who's amazing.
Oh yeah, I love following her.
She's 25. Yeah. She's at 31. I did not know everything at 25. And sometimes if I see, I don't know, I can't get a clean example, but sometimes I do think, I see her content and I'll see some comments and I think, leave her alone. She's amazing. She's absolutely smashing it. She deserves to be here. Yes, she's not a chartered accountant. She doesn't need to be. She's talking to a different audience. And I think that goes as well. Some of the boys in my space as well, the younger guys as well, I think, oh, yeah, you're not, we're not all the same. And that's absolutely perfect. Because if there was another identical me, it'd be really boring.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just talked then about how young people have anxieties about their finances. What kind of day-to-day financial habits are quietly driving these anxieties without people really noticing?
It's the avoidance. So avoiding your money is quite possibly the single thing that's giving you the most anxiety. Most people cannot tell me what their net worth is. Not because they don't and also you don't have to tell anyone, but you should know that number. And what I mean by that is how many assets you have, how much cash, etc. do you have? And then what are your outgoings or what are your liabilities? So what expenses are going out every month? What debt do you have? And then the difference between your assets and your liabilities effectively is your net worth. And not a lot of people know that. And that, I think, is one of the worst things, because people just guess each month whether they're going to be fine. And that guessing, I can imagine with your physical health, if people are just making up what's wrong with them, you're just creating a whole host of problems. Yeah. And someone will say to me, oh God, I'm just terrible at saving. And I go, well, do you save? Do you do any saving? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so you're not terrible, you just don't do it. Yeah. They're two very different things. There's that funny, oh God, was it in Eat, Pray, Love, where it's a funny quote where the guy goes to a statue every day and says, I just want to win the lottery, I want to win the lottery. And the statue becomes so exhausted by him constantly going back and asking this question that he comes to life and says, please, will you just go and buy a ticket? And actually, I found that really funny. And I think I feel the same sometimes with finances, because people come to me and go, I'm not saving, I don't have to save, I'm so bad with saving. And I'm like, do you have a savings account? Who's it with? And they go, no. And I'm like, okay, shall we start there? Because even if you've saved £1, it's the psychology that then you've started, and then you'll put another pound in, and then obviously ideally you put more than that in. But it's the psychology of just doing it, and it's avoidance, I think, that causes the most anxiety, people not knowing. Yeah. It's definitely the worst.
I completely relate to that. I definitely went through a period of my life a few years ago where I didn't check my bank statement.
Yeah.
I just kind of was like, I spend what I spend, as long as I'm not getting into debt, it's fine. Yeah. But it isn't, because then you lose opportunity to save and invest. And now I know that. But I do relate with anyone that's afraid to check their credit card statement.
Yeah, I do. And I get that. And also sometimes It depends how you feel about various things. If you are very, very comfortable with AI and you're very comfortable with having your data, do you know what? AI could be really helpful with this in the terms of like throwing your bank statement into that.
Yeah.
I don't know, some people might hate me for that.
I do that.
Well, this is the thing, some people do it, and I'll go, and you can say, right, tell me what I'm not seeing, or what are my outgoings, categorize it all for me. Or you take your bank statement offline, put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Most people don't like them, but if you do, put them into an Excel spreadsheet and then just get Excel to create you a pie graph of like what everything is.
Yeah.
And it's just having that visibility, because some people don't realize that there is leaks in their bank statement. So subscriptions where they're paying a friend said she didn't realize she was paying 2 Netflix subscriptions, and then she didn't realize that she's paying Disney Plus, and also her girlfriend's also paying Disney Plus, and they live in the same house. Like there was lots of crossovers, and I think, yes, they're small, but they all add up. And so, yeah, definitely worth reviewing your bank statements as much as you can. Like maybe monthly might be a bit much, but quarterly as a minimum would be great. Just so that you can keep track of things and make sure you know what things are and like how much you're spending on certain things. Because for me, I have a high travel expense, for instance. Like I travel a lot with work, but right now I don't overspend on things like hobbies. One time at a stage in my life I will. I'm going to have so many hobbies and I'm going to live my best life. But right now, like work is quite a focus. And so I don't go out that much. And so there's not those expenses. So like my entertainment is mainly just like work dinners and maybe dinners with some of my closest best friends. But like, do you know what I mean? There's peaks and troughs in your life, but just keeping visible over it. It's not right or wrong. It's just who you are.
No, I completely agree. So what is the first step that you'd want these people to take? Is it checking your bank statement?
Yes. First would be check your bank statement. Try and do as much analysis as you physically can before you get bored. Just like what's going in, what's coming out, how it's tracking over a period of time would be great. That would be my first, followed very closely by obviously checking your payslip. That's a bit of a standard for me, but reviewing it and making sure that it's correct, because your payslip is your responsibility. Again, something we just don't teach people, but fine. Well, I do a lot.
Okay, let's teach people.
Okay, fine. So it sounded like I was leading you down that road.
So I don't really know what my tax code means, and I don't know how to read my payslip.
Okay, great. Right, so your tax code. So on your payslip, it's like, obviously everyone's payslip's slightly editorially different. Like it's just based on the company that you work for. And to be honest, it's based on the finance platform they use, is on the payslip that will get spat out. But what you're going to see is you're going to see like your name, your national insurance number, you're going to see your incomings and your outgoings. So your earnings box and your deductions box. And then you also have like you'll have a third box underneath usually that's got all of this kind of finance jargon in it. And one of those things will be a tax code. The most common is 1257L. It's not the only one, it's just the most common. And it basically relates to you having £12,570 of personal allowance before you start being taxed. If yours says 1257L. If yours doesn't say that, so let's say it says 1200L, it means you're only getting £12,000 before you're being taxed. So in theory, you could be overpaying tax. You might even see something like an emergency tax code, like a 0T, which means you're paying tax on all of your income. All of these things you need to check. So if you go on your payslip and it says one tax code, and then you go onto your HMRC app or account and it's a different one, the HMRC one is usually right. So obviously you want to make sure HMRC send your new tax code to your employer, because especially with young people or people that are going through lifestyle changes. So I see it a lot with mothers. I see it a lot with career leavers or people taking gap years and things like that. You see them end up on maybe an emergency tax code just because their employer doesn't know what to put them on, and it means you're overpaying tax. Right. You might eventually get this back through a tax refund, but ideally you want it correct from the beginning. If you start earning over £100,000, you do start to lose that 12,570, but we can talk about that another time if you want. But basically, yeah, you start to lose that over a period of time until you have nothing once you earn over 125,140. But for the majority of people, especially early on in their career, you're going to probably be that 1257L. Please, please, please keep an eye on it. The only positive with tax thresholds freezing at the moment is that number hasn't changed, so I don't have to re-explain that number. It's not positive on any other light, but for this reason, it is good. But yeah, 12,570 is the personal allowance.
So if your tax code looks wrong or you're not sure if it's correct, what do you do? So
check the HMRC app or the HMRC Gov website, see what it says on there. And then if there's a different number on there, you basically just need to contact HMRC and ask them to send your employer a new tax code. And then your employer should be sent one, and then it should appear in your next payslip, and corrections as well might happen through that time as well.
So it's your responsibility to get the rebate or pay anything.
Yeah, it is, which sounds ridiculous given we're not told. But anyway, that is how it works. And then, with your payslip in general, the other things I would say, obviously check your tax code, check the student loan plan you're on. If you've had multiple student loans, you're going to want to check which plans are coming out. Also review how far you've got left to go. Most people have a long way to go, especially if you're on plan 2.
I think I have more than I started with.
Yes, I do. I have like almost 10k more than I started with. And I've been paying off for over 10 years, which we're just gonna skip past. And then student loans, pension contributions as well. Sorry, I'm like on my imaginary payslip in front of me. And then pension contributions as well, making sure you're contributing enough that you can into your pension and making sure you're matching anything your employer is willing to contribute.
Okay. Sounds like a good place to start.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about prevention in healthcare.
Yeah.
What does prevention look like financially?
1, teaching finance in schools. Just that's it. Like if we taught finance in schools, those kids are like sponges, especially if you can teach from year 1. I have kids, so I've got schools where I've been teaching there since they were in year 1. They're now in year 4 or 5. And it's amazing what they know. They are like sponges, because in year 1, you can start talking about things like money and the cost of things. By year 2, you're talking about earning money and saving money. By year 3, they're starting to get more creative and they want to understand what budgeting is and what tax is. And then by year 4 or 5, we can talk about how does investing work? What does that look like? And you're building such a solid foundation that they are then going to take through all those school years when life isn't so pressured on them, and they can just keep building on those blocks. Whereas the most stressful schools I have to teach is when I'm literally there just for an hour to teach year 13, where I've got an hour to give them everything they need before they become adults. And I feel like I speed through everything. All the kids, I've never been to a school where they've not wanted me there because they're all obsessed with learning about money. But I just wish we could do it earlier. And the prevention would genuinely be just teaching it from year 1.
But this problem becomes the same in health. I actually was speaking to a nutritionist the other week on the podcast, and often the teachers don't have the knowledge to teach it.
Yep.
And that's a problem, because then you have to get external speakers to come in and teach this content. You kind of think, we think teachers know everything, but actually many of them are people like us that may never have been taught this themselves.
Yeah, I get some backlash from this as well, because some people will say to me, okay, but the teachers have enough on their plate. And I'm going to say this explicitly. All teachers are saints. They're amazing. I've never met a teacher that wasn't incredible, because what they do day in, day out is honestly, I go into schools and maybe do a day max a week, and I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. I don't know how they do it every single day. And the questions, it's relentless. But we shouldn't be putting any more pressure on them. If they want to learn and understand finance for themselves, that's absolutely fine. But we shouldn't be putting pressure on them, because also financial education looks different for everyone. And the reason I personally believe it should be done by qualified professionals is because it really needs to be unbiased. And if you're a teacher, you will have some subconscious biases based on your learned experience, because most teachers have been to uni. Most teachers maybe live near their school. There's lots of elements that they've not been exposed to. So I would say that financial education needs to come from unbiased, qualified professionals. I think, we're always trying, like I said with Ellen, to create products and courses effectively that we can hand to the teachers to give them this education so they can give it on. But it's not always that easy. But I do get it. I do understand. But it's just about, adults as well, just speaking from their experiences. Yes, teachers can do a little bit, but then maybe it also falls on parents or guardians or adults that, if you're around a child, what can you teach them? What do you know that they don't currently know? You'd be amazed the amount of kids that are really interested in this stuff. I don't have tons of young people in my family life, but I've got lots of my friends that are now having babies. And as those babies are growing up, there's a running joke that Auntie Abby's the finance woman. And I'm always being when I go round, there's a little boy called Noah, and we always sit there and he always brings me all his coins, because that's his association with me, is that I'm the finance, so therefore coins. And I'm like, great, we don't mind that. I'm happy to be coin lady. And we like count the coins out and we like move them around and we exchange coins for different things. And he's very young. So he's not, but you never know. He might be a business owner in the future. But it's just like bringing it into everyday life, I think is definitely one of the best preventions.
So let's bring it into everyday life for the people listening to this podcast with some practical tips and ways we can build everyday systems to help people get in control.
Okay.
I love a health habit. I'm always talking about small daily actions that compound over time to improve our long-term health. Do you have any practical, low-effort money habits or systems for busy people who aren't necessarily good with numbers, that doesn't rely on willpower?
I think a lot of people think all of finance is high effort, to be honest. And I'm skewed because
I think it's high effort the first time you do it.
Yes.
And then when you've built the systems, it's then low effort because it's like a maintenance.
Exactly. That's what I think I would say is, just trust me, the first time is going to be high effort. It's not going to be fun. Like, make it as enjoyable as you possibly can. So like, effectively take yourself on a money date. Like, you don't need to go anywhere specifically, but like, I always see these like Instagram videos where like the girl pours herself like a Diet Coke into a wine glass. And I always think that's just like the highest sophistication sometimes when you're at home. And then you have like really nice dinner and you've cleaned your flat or your house and you're like sat down on the sofa, using that time to then go, right, I'm going to do something I really don't want to do, but at least everything else is nice. And then you just download your statements, download your payslips, and just get everything in one area and just look at it. And then, like you said, once that uncomfortable money date has happened, the following month, you don't need to do the rest because it's going to take you minutes to download and implement and review. So yeah, that would be my money habit. If you can, once a quarter, try not to leave it to the end of the year, because also you'll find that your life will have seasonal differences. So most people will spend more in that last quarter of the year around Christmas. A lot of people will see like drops in the summer when we do more things that don't cost money because we can be outside. So yeah, it's worth doing on a quarterly basis as you can, just because you'll see differences.
Yeah. And what I would say is the first time you do that, there are quite a lot of emotions. Like, I felt a little bit guilty and a bit ashamed in myself sometimes when you see some of those spendings, or the fact that you have been wasteful because you didn't realise you had a subscription. Or I realised I was paying something like £20 a month for an editing app that I don't even use. And I was like, I could have invested that. And it's not a nice feeling, but it's like anything, that kind of like short-term discomfort. You kind of need to go through it to get to the long-term gain.
Exactly. That's bang on. You know, you're going to find things that are uncomfortable, but actually at least you fix them now and not 2 years down the line. You know, there's an incredible creator called Ben West. Well, actually he's a campaigner, sorry. And he talks obviously a lot about suicide. And we were at number 10 together last week, or number 11 actually, Downing Street.
I think I met you there and you did a talk with him at like a summer thing last year.
Yeah, I did. I don't think I've ever spoke with specifically Ben.
Maybe it was someone else.
Have I?
You were on a panel?
I was on a panel, yeah.
I don't know if he was hosting. Did he introduce the event?
No, that was a guy called Gabriel.
Oh, yes.
No, Ben was at this number 11 thing last week, and he was coming at it from a mental health point of view. He was talking about mental health, and we were talking about how like finance is impacting mental health. And one of the subjects he brought up was how the suicide rates in farmers have gone up recently because of obviously the impact that the inheritance tax changes have had on the farming community. And it broke my heart because I was like, this is criminal. Like, this shouldn't be allowed to happen. And actually, we all forget the impact finance has on mental health, but also the extremes. Like when people are in debt and when people don't know where to turn, you know, the worst happens. And I think that the government have a lot to answer for that, but also from the perspective of education. You know, yeah, fine. Maybe what they did with farmers' inheritance tax and removing the agricultural relief, you know, has a knock-on effect. But also, they should have educated better to explain why. You know, like there was a study brought to Keir Starmer end of last year. He basically took his own life because he was dying already, and he knew that if he lived past April, which is gone now, his family would have a huge inheritance tax bill, whereas if he died before, they wouldn't, because it would have felt like fallen under the threshold. What on earth? Like, that is wild. Like, we shouldn't, like, how that wasn't a massive conversation. And Ben was saying that they're seeing a huge rise in that. And I don't know, it just makes me angry. And it's why, like, I go and talk to governments and things like that, because I want to, like, stand up and be like, come on, come to the front and educate people. Don't just put these policies in place and hope that we're not like that we'll just understand them.
Yeah.
I'll stop because I get very passionate about this, but I just get really frustrated because it's not just farmers, it's so many people now.
That's why I wanted to get you on this podcast, because I think subliminally for some people, but very prominently for others, money is such a source of stress. Like it is something that plays on our mind, especially when all of the news is about how doomed we are financially, all of the changes. I think it's something that people do worry about. And it's that sort of anxiety that stops you sleeping. It's like your head hits the pillow and the numbers come into your head.
Yeah, it's the reason you wake up at 3 a.m, isn't it? Like, you know, money is a huge problem. Like, isn't it one of the main reasons people divorce? Like, money affects everything. And, you know, when people throw out like money doesn't buy happiness, I'm like, yeah, but it buys freedom. And freedom is what can reduce those anxieties and reduce that stress of like feeling in control. And money is so important. Like it's I don't know, I just think sometimes it can be really condescending when people say stuff like, oh, like it's not as important as other things, like your health. I get it, your health is so much more important, but finance comes very closely, because if you don't have financial protection, health problems can be really horrible. Like, you know, I was talking to someone the other day about like, I've been incredibly lucky in the last year with the NHS. I had a hernia last year. Sorry, probably too much information. But I had a hernia last year, and I went to my doctors, and within 2 days, I had, or like 2 days of seeing the GP, I had a scan. Within a week of that scan, I had my meeting with my surgeon. And within a month of that first doctor's appointment, I had my surgery booked in, because like it was like quite urgent and quite like necessary. But I have friends that, you know, have had such a stressful situation going through, especially with like female like endometriosis and things like that. They've had such a stressful situation trying to go through the NHS that they've then resorted to paying privately to do things, because it reduces their mental stress. And they could only do that because they had the financial capabilities to do it. And so I think it's really important that we don't keep putting finance in a box of like, oh, it's a dirty word, don't talk about it, you don't need too much, because actually it can be such a protection for us.
Exactly. And it's little things like if you are in a relationship and you house share and you want to leave the relationship, the fact that you can have some money in a pot that thinks I can move out and I can look after myself for a few months, or I can get a cab home.
Literally that's all I talk about. It's like the FU pot is to be able to leave someone that you don't want to be with anymore, a job that you absolutely hate, but also to the other extreme of, I just want to leave this party. Like, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I don't want to be here anymore, but it's late at night, it's the depths of winter, I'm freezing, and the train station's a 30-minute walk away, or even a 20-minute walk away, and then from my flat's a 20-minute walk from there. No, I just throw my hands in the air and go, no, this is Uber, Bolt, whoever you choose, it's a problem now. Like, I'm just going to get in the cab and just go home. And that is sometimes some of the most freeing ways I use my money, is to give myself peace. And that goes across all of those. And it's why I want to talk about this and write about it a lot in the next few years, because actually it's so important that we provide freedom to the next generation.
And I think we need to just separate that money isn't just designer handbags and flashy cars. It is exactly what you just said. It's freedom to, you know, if you miss the train home, you can get in a cab and it's not going to completely ruin your day, or an unexpected bill comes and it's not causing you sleepless nights. It's having that freedom. I think that is really at the heart of all of this conversation. So you talk a lot about saving and paying yourself first. For someone who feels like they have nothing left over at the end of the month, how can you realistically start?
Okay. I know it's when they say they have nothing left, I always say you've got to pay yourself first, even if it's like £5-10, like right at the beginning of the month, to like instill the habit. I'd love to know the psychology. Maybe I should do some more research into this, but the psychology of like having something means you then continue to add more to that. Whereas if you have nothing, starting from nothing's really hard.
Because our brain loves tracking. It loves progress. It loves ticking off reward. You get a dopamine release when you see that £10 become £20.
Exactly. It's that book 0 to 1. It's about business, but like 0 to 1 is really hard. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 1,000, actually quite easy, but it's the 0 to 1 that's really difficult. So it's starting the habit as early as you can. So like putting it in place. So when you get paid, everyone knows the day they get paid, or they should do. setting up an automation that just takes money straight away.
Yeah.
So it's an automatic payment. Making sure that you, like I said, we're kind of rounding through the podcast, but like review any leaks in your bank statements. And like you said you were paying £20 for an editing app, making sure when you realize that and you've stopped it, that you make sure that £20 goes straight somewhere else.
Yeah.
It doesn't then become your money. It becomes future you's money,
yeah,
future Frankie's money. And that's what I always try and say to people. If you've got leaks, like equate them, because they were clearly there and weren't like, well, maybe they would have been useful back with you, but you can take a portion of them
without that money.
Exactly. And then put that straight into savings or investing. There is a limit to savings. You do not need all of your money in savings. You need an emergency fund pot, and then you should be starting to build your wealth.
How much should you have in an emergency fund pot?
The rule is like 3 to 6 months of living expenses. If you're self-employed, I personally would put that from like 6 to 9 months. I'm having more because it's a bit more of a volatile career. But 3 to 6 months of expenses is really important. And then I have an emergency fund pot, and then I have a FU pot, and that usually is like kind of running in parallel with my emergency fund pot. But I have like savings in there that I kind of use for like longer term situations. So the emergency fund pot would be really easy access, and then maybe that FU pot would be a little bit like more difficult to get to, but it's going to give you some good returns. And then after that, it's all about building wealth. So pensions, investing, etc.
Love it. And so until you've got a little bit of money saved, you shouldn't necessarily think about investing.
No, not necessarily that. I think you can do them alongside each other. But sometimes what I'll see is people will favor saving and be like, oh, investing's too risky. And then suddenly they've got way too much money in their savings pot, really. And they're not investing. And I'm like, you're not going to use all of this. And it's actually not building you wealth. But I would also caveat this, because I have people in my life where I was talking to a friend of mine who's pregnant, and she was saying how they basically drawn down their investment portfolio because actually they're going to extend their house and they've got a baby coming, and they basically want all of their cash quite easy access, which I get. Lifestyle comes to play. But if you're someone that doesn't need all of this right now, please don't forget about investing.
So if someone is saving for maybe a property in the near future, should they save that money rather than invest it? Because investing is more for the long term.
Investing is definitely for the long term. Investing is usually 5+ years. So if they're saving for a property they want to buy in the next 5 years, then probably saving. But also everything I say, by the way, is financial education, not advice. I don't know any one specific circumstance, but let's just say we had this made up person that wanted to buy in the next 2-3 years, and all they wanted to do was build the biggest deposit they possibly could, then yes, saving would probably be the preferred route. But it's always good to keep one eye on future you and making sure that you're not just running, and then you look back and go, oh, I should have started even a small amount back here when it comes to investing.
Yeah, I always try and keep, even if I have different priorities in my life, even if I lower that investment, there's still something going in just to keep things ticking. So if someone wanted to start investing, even if that is a small amount, are there any key principles they should know before they click any buttons?
So when it comes to investing, you want to choose a platform that works for you. I specifically work with Trading 212, but there are multiple platforms, and you want to have a look at which ones suit you. There's loads of videos online like comparing them all. So you've got like Trading 212, or Invest Engine, or Hargreaves Lansdown, like some of the ones you will have heard of, some of them you might not have. But you're looking, especially if you're investing a small amount to start, you're going to look for low fees, which is why I work with Trading 212, because they have very low fees, so that basically your investments aren't being eaten away by fees or or any other like interest costs that they've got affiliated on their site. And then it's about starting small, so starting with a small amount every month, and like keeping do your learning to start with. So you can be putting like £5 to £10 in a month just for the first few months, and then building up your confidence over time. Investing, personally, I would look, if I was starting over again, I would look at something like a FTSE All-World tracker. So FTSE stands for Financial Times Stock Exchange, and FTSE All-World is like, it just brings together a bunch of different stocks and shares from all across the globe into one, what's called an ETF, so exchange traded fund. And you can invest in a little bit of that, and then basically it's tracking all of those stocks and shares. So it's really diversifying your risk. That would be, if I was starting again, I would take a small amount of money, invest it in that, and just like leave it alone for a little bit. The more confident you get, obviously, the more money you put in, because the more risk you're going to put in, and then the more diversified you could get in terms of, you could then look at the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US, the FTSE 100, top 100 companies in the UK, or you could, if you wanted to, it's up to you, like you could look at specific like stocks and shares that you like. It's a personal choice. It really is. And no one should tell you what you should invest in. You should always try and do as much education as physically possible. But some of these platforms will have they'll show you how other people invest as well. So there's a lot of learning to be done.
Yeah, love that. Can you explain what an ISA is? Because when it comes to April, we always hear your ISA limit is about to, is coming to an end.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I am one of those people. So ISA stands for Individual Savings Account. In the UK, you get a £20,000 allowance per person per tax year, and that resets when the tax year resets. So the tax year runs from the 6th of April round to the 5th of April. And what that means is you get it across 4. So as an adult, we get cash, stocks and shares, lifetime, or innovative finance ISAs. And you can split the 20 across the 4. The only one with a cap currently is the lifetime ISA has a cap at 4K. From next tax year, the cash ISA is going to have a cap at 12K. But right now, you can put 20 across in cash, stocks and shares, and innovative finance.
In each of them or across all of them?
Across all of them. So if you've used 4K in your lifetime ISA, you've only got 16K to use across the other 3. You don't have to use all of them. You can use none of them if you want. But the reason people do is that any money you invest in an ISA, basically any income you earn from it, so if that's interest or capital gains, is completely tax-free. So there's no tax liability on the income earned within an ISA. That's the kind of tax wrapper. Like most countries now have a version of it. The US has its own version. Australia has a version. But it's just a tax wrapper place to save your money.
So if you put more than £20,000 in, you'd start getting taxed on the interest?
Basically, what happens is you can't really put more than 20 in. If you're found to, yes, HMRC will ask you to remove or adjust.
Okay.
You can, obviously, once you've hit that 20,000, if you have, there are other investments or other savings you can do. You've got like premium bonds, general savings accounts, you've got general investment accounts. But with the general savings and a general investment account, you could be taxable for interest or income earned in that.
Okay. So if someone is in debt or is just feeling really ashamed about their finances, where do they start? Are there any do's and don'ts for getting out of that hole?
When it comes to debt, if you are at the viewpoint of, I can't cope with this anymore, please speak to Step Change or Citizens Advice or someone like that for support. They are out there to help you. There is so many routes out of this situation, and there are so many routes to protect you and support you. So that would be the extreme end. If you've got a small amount of debt, but you're just wondering what would be the best way to pay it off, I always personally, from an education point of view, would look at my debts in a row. Obviously, like I said before, having all of your assets and liabilities on a spreadsheet, understanding which one has the highest interest, and then maybe looking at reducing that down first. There are some anomalies. So obviously, student loans, mortgages tend to be like the largest of our debts, but they're not necessarily always the highest interest, versus we might have a credit card debt that's lower in value, but higher in interest. So really important that you review that as well.
So would you pay off your credit card debt before you started an FU fund, for example?
I would be reducing down my credit card debt as quickly as I could. I think, there's a lot of people out there. You've got like that Dave Ramsey guy who's very aggressive, that basically you shouldn't do anything until you've reduced all of your debts. But sometimes it can be quite like positive mentally to have some sort of savings as well.
Yeah.
As it always, instead of it always just drilling down and feeling like it's just running away from you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say making sure you're doing a little bit of both, but prioritizing the debt repayment.
Sometimes, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but sometimes say I've paid for something on a credit card, I try not to touch my savings to pay that off.
Yes.
Because it feels like a big chunk comes out of your savings. Whereas if I know I have that credit card, the next time I get paid, I'm like, I need to pay that off.
Yes.
Whereas if I paid it off with my savings, the urgency to put it back in my savings isn't quite the same as the urgency to pay off the credit card.
Totally. Your credit card shouldn't be there to plug gaps in your income. It should be a tool to get points and free things from your credit card provider, and the security that Section 75 brings you, which is basically if you buy anything between £100 and £30,000, your credit card provider will like protect you if something goes wrong. But it should not be there as a gap plug for your income. It should only be what you can afford to pay right now, but you're getting benefits from the spending.
Love that. Do you think that women have it worse than men when it comes to money stress? For example, with the gender pay gap or career breaks?
That's actually a really tricky question, because I think I hear more about men stressing about money, but I do think that this financial system was not set up for women in the way it was set up for men. So yes, I think that there is still a lot of pressure on men in this day and age to be like the breadwinners and to be in control. And when they're not in control, you often hear, like going back to Ben West's story, there are a lot of men that think the only way out is to go. And that's horrific. And I hate to think that. And maybe if we were teaching finance at a younger age, they would know of other routes out of the problem than the one they took. But I think for women, we need to be so aware the financial system was not set up for us. Like women couldn't even take out credit cards or loans on their own until like the 70s, 80s.
Wow.
And I just think that even now, I talked about this the other day, I had a little bit of a rant, which sort of regretted now. But I ranted about the fact that as a woman, the standard is just so different than my male counterparts in my space. And then when you look at finances, like we're just expected to be all and everything all the time and like have it all together. And actually, we're not going to get it right all the time, because actually I go into rooms where I'm often the only or one of very few women. And then I think, well, if these are the people that are making life-changing decisions for the world, my world, like UK market, what does that show? We're still getting huge amounts of investment in the UK businesses, but only in male businesses, because when you're raising funds as a small business, most of the time, like the stats still like it's only like 3% or 3% goes to female-backed businesses, and it comes to like private equity. And that means we're getting more businesses built, fine, but built by men designing products probably for men. Whereas very few women are designing products they could be because they don't get the funding for it. So I would say I would never ever think that one gender has it harder. It's just different circumstances. Like men might feel this pressure, like we saw with that manosphere. Men feel this pressure to like be alpha, be the man, and whatever that sounds like. But I know that there are women out there that, there's this new era of like female independence, and we're going, why am I struggling to understand this? I'm like, well, because chances are this and everything iteration before it in terms of like the banking system or the investing system was set up and designed by a man. So they didn't think about you and your lifestyle when it came to it. And that's, I think, something that, we should be talking about more.
What is the gender pay gap?
Oh, so the gender pay gap itself is... so people often think it's a gender wage gap where men are paid more than women for the same role. That's not a thing. That is illegal. Well, it is a thing, unfortunately, but it's illegal, so it shouldn't happen. The gender pay gap is where you have a reference of a bad gender pay gap is if you're in a company and there is majority women in those lower income intern assistant roles, and then when you get to the C-suite, it's majority men. You see this in a lot of female industries, hilariously. Like female-based industries, you'll see a lot of women working as assistants or PAs or interns, and then you'll look up at the C-suite, and the CFO, CEO, president, editor, etc., are all men. And that's a gender pay gap problem, where basically we're not seeing women rise through their careers up to that top level. And so the average income between the two is very different. And we see things like the motherhood penalty and like the lack of support for women in their careers being a real problem for that.
I listened to you on a podcast recently and you were like, someone said they should get paid by their husband to have their baby.
Yeah.
Because you miss out on your investments and your pension and everything.
Oh, yeah. I
went straight home and said that.
No, I do believe in that. I know it's not going to be liked, fine, but there are loads of things. I think, again, Rory Sutherland, was it Rory Sutherland? There was someone out there, I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were saying that, like, women, actually, it was Rotimi I was talking to, Mr. Money Jar. We were talking about, like, what we're seeing declining birth rates, like, at an alarming level, and an older generation that we're having to finance because the state pension is a huge amount of money to the state. And the problem we're seeing is like, Rotimi asked me, he was like, why are women not having kids? I'm like, because there's absolutely no protection for us.
Yeah.
Like childcare is really expensive. we don't have that village community anymore. Like my mum doesn't live down the road. I can't rely on anyone. It would be solely me. And also it often happens where you just look at both of your careers. So let's just say it's a man and a woman. It's not the same for everyone, but you look at like both of your incomes, and usually, not always, but they might earn slightly more. And so then you go, okay, well, he earns more, so therefore I'll stop working.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And actually what should be happening is, there should just be changes. I think Rotimi was saying that maybe we need to do what some other Eastern European countries have done, where they've started to reduce down the income tax bill for women that have kids. So if you have a kid, your income tax bill is lowered by X%, and if you had a second kid, it's lowered again. By 4 kids, you basically don't pay income tax, which I don't know if I fully support, but I definitely am interested in what it looks like in the future, because we're being told we can have it all, but not all at once.
I do agree with that. And like what you were saying before about the property thing, it's like, I don't have any space to have a child because I live in a small flat in London, and I can't afford a big house in southwest London like our parents may have been able to. There's so much to think about. What are some signs that people are actually doing better with their money than they might think they are?
Do you know what? Social media, the fact that finance, like influencers are a thing, like the fact that more people are following finance creators and more people care about it. A few years ago, the only person anyone knew was Martin Lewis. Now there's a full rebrand into financial education where people think that it's for them now, which I love. I think is amazing. And I think you should find who represents you. And if you keep looking, because there's so many incredible creators out there. And I think definitely that. I think definitely the fact that banks and investment platforms are having to wise up that, they can't just rely on speaking to one genre or one type of person. They have to speak to everyone now. I was speaking at a JP Morgan event recently, and I was like, you all want to know how to speak to the next generation, but none of you speak to the next generation. Like you all, you're heavily looking after that older generation who, yes, have their money with you right now, but eventually that money is going to drop down to their next generation, and you haven't looked after them. And so they're going to put all those, maybe not millions, but let's just imagine this like old man at, I don't know, an old bank has got all his hundreds of thousands of pounds in his bank. He's then going to pass that to his kid. Where do you think his kid's going to put it? Probably Monzo, because Monzo have looked after him since he was 16 years old. Monzo care. Monzo are cool. Like they're doing bits, like Starling, all of these neobanks are doing bits for the next generation, and they're not doing it because they're just thinking short term. They're thinking long term, these banks, and they know that as these people drop out, as these people get wealthier, that's where the money is. And I think there's a lot of banks that don't remember that.
I completely agree. It's like my dad is like, I hate online banking. And I'm like, my payslip goes into my online bank.
Yeah.
It's like, so you can't go to the bank. I'm like, no, Monzo don't have a bank.
No.
It's all online, and it blows his mind. But I agree, Monzo look after me. They give me a better rate when I take cash out abroad or do online transactions. And that's a great point. For anyone listening who feels behind or ashamed or like they've left it too late, because it can feel like that when everyone is saving and investing and having all these conversations, they feel like they know what their payslip is. It can feel like a little bit embarrassing when you realise you don't. How do they get a grip on this? What do you want to say to them?
Oh, it's that thing. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Don't compare your day one to someone else's day 100, like day 365. It is so, so important that you just start. And also talk to people that are at similar, do you know why I think it's really important to talk to people further along than you, is you can see what's possible. But don't forget to have a little sit back and go, yeah, but I'm further along than the person behind me that's done nothing. You know what I mean? It's it's absolutely fine. Speak to people, get advice, get support. Just, don't sit back and do nothing. Because I think sometimes it's the fear that stops people doing anything.
Absolutely. I always think this when it comes to running. You see on social media, everyone's amazing at running and they're running like half marathons and marathons every weekend, and then you actually learn the stat that most people can't run a 5k in the UK, and you're like, you know what, the fact that I put my trainers on, I'm winning.
And life changes. Like I did the London Marathon, but at age 22, I'm now 31. Yeah, 31. I can't run a marathon now, and that's okay, because there was a time in my life where I was really dedicated to one thing and I really wanted to do it. Great. I don't care about that now. I honestly couldn't think of anything worse. Like, I'm going to watch the marathon. We love it. Here for the support. But absolutely no way. My knees would just not be okay with it. So I think that, and it goes the same with finance and literacy. You're going to have different stages in your life where different things matter to you.
Yeah.
And that's also absolutely fine.
Absolutely. And if you've made some bad decisions and things you regret, use that as motivation and fuel to make better decisions going forward.
I cut a fringe last year. Why did I do that? I don't know. We make decisions every day that I shouldn't have done.
I don't think you can have a bad hair day, so I wouldn't.
I can. I feel like it was a weird hiding technique. I cut a fringe, and the whole time it was a nightmare. It just constantly got in my way. Anyway, sorry, so unrelevant, and I'm not taking it lightly that finance is really important. But yeah, I'm just talking about mistakes I've made, because I've made many.
What is your vision of health? What does health look like to you?
To me, I know it should probably be a finance thing, but to me, my vision of health is being able to go to the gym and do what I want, like lift weights or go for a swim or do yoga, and feel just peaceful whilst I do it, because I've had periods where I couldn't do those things. And I've also had periods where like I couldn't even have afforded to like go to the gym because it didn't make financial sense and things like that. So yeah, sometimes I think when I go into my gym, or actually it's when I'm walking out of the gym and I've just done like a heavy workout and I've gone for a swim and spa and I've washed my hair and I'm like, I am the vision of health. How can I ever top this? So yeah, that's probably mine. If we wanted one that was specific for people in terms of financial health, a vision of financial health is just knowing your numbers. That's it.
Yeah. So this is a sign that if anyone's listening and you've been putting it off, now is the time to open up that bank statement. Abby Foster, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Vision of Health. I hope this episode has helped you feel a little more informed and empowered and given you some realistic takeaways that you can apply to your own life to help you get clearer on your own vision of health. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you left a review, subscribed to the channel, and shared this episode with someone who might enjoy it too. It genuinely helps support the podcast and it allows us to keep having these conversations. And as always, thank you for being part of the Vision of Health community. I'll see you in the next episode.